Welcome into the PFF NFL Podcast midweek YouTube show. Are you ready?
Yeah, pretty much.
We have a start time that you've missed.
Well, I was here, and then the laptop battery decided that it was just going to die on me.
So you raced back to your desk and
get the charger, and now we're good to go.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Welcome, everyone. We're live on YouTube. It's our midweek show just for you on YouTube, not for our podcast listeners.
No.
But I assume all of our podcast listeners come here and watch.
Of course.
Yeah, so we always we mix it up, a little mailbag. We just discuss whatever we want here, or whatever you want with the mailbag. So you want to get right into it?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So what are we discussing?
So we're not going to discuss the face slapping question, no?
No, I think the face slapping question's better for the podcast or, nowhere.
Okay, all right. So this is a good question. This is from Rich Kingston. Let's call him friend of the show because he's quite interactive.
Oh, yeah.
We get him a lot on Twitter. Many/some believed when we started the season that every team was pretty much happy with the quarterback they had. How many teams are still happy? Or perhaps more importantly, how many teams are not still happy with their quarterback situation?
Yeah, just to rewind a little bit, I do believe before the season, out of 32 teams, probably 28 of them either felt good about their guy or had recently drafted a guy that they were convincing themselves that they're going to feel good about.
Right.
That includes Mitchell Trubisky with the Bears. That includes Josh Allen with the Bills, Sam Darnold. It includes all those guys drafted, Baker. Everybody had either drafted a guy within the last 2 years or had somebody.
So heading into the year, how many teams do you think were not happy with their quarterback situation?
I would say the Dolphins.
Okay.
They knew that they needed a guy at some point. The Broncos.
Even with Drew Lock.
Even with Drew Lock and Joe Flacco.
I think they were happy with their situation. Because John Elway thought, Joe Flacco is the steady hand.
We're trying to get into their head?
Yeah.
Or we're trying to give our own evaluation?
No. How many teams do we think were happy with their quarterback situation heading into the draft?
I think teams are delusional, 32.
No, I don't think the Dolphins were happy even. This was not any kind of plan for them. This was get through the year and draft.
Then it's literally everybody but the Dolphins.
Okay, fair enough.
Because the Bengals were, maybe the Bengals are like, hey, we know Andy Dalton's not the guy. There's a difference between, content for 2019 and hey, we're in the market.
No, I think the Bengals count. It's probably just the Dolphins.
Then there's the Titans and the Bucs, who were both in this pivotal year 5. We'll see what happens.
Right. Okay.
Either way, there was a lot of teams that probably felt. You get the Jaguars brought in Nick Foles, the Giants just drafted Daniel Jones, the Redskins just drafted Dwayne Haskins. There's a lot of teams in that boat.
Yeah. So I think we're backing up the premise, right? Essentially, at the very minimum, 31 teams probably felt good about their QB situation heading into the year. The only one that wouldn't have is the Dolphins because it was Fitzpatrick and Rosen.
Which I think, if we said this 5 years ago, 2014, 2015.
That would be 10 didn't like it.
Yeah. It was just a different world back then. Now
it is kind of amazing. I don't know that people appreciate that much. This idea, the Alex Smith $100 million contract from Kansas City was seen as insanity at the time. But it was this is insane, but you have to do it because if you don't have an Alex Smith, you can have a Brody Croyle starting at quarterback instead. That's how bad things can get.
Right.
You're stuck with it. Just having a guy who is below average is really important.
So I think a big part of it is as the league continues to get easier to pass and they're scheming it up and all that stuff, you can take the Andy Daltons of the world and elevate their play. So that's a part of it as well. So as far as which teams now are going into the offseason or just aren't happy with their quarterbacks.
Right now.
We're not going to get into free
Which teams
agencies.
right now are no longer in a happy place with their quarterback situation?
All right. Dolphins.
Still.
Bengals.
Yes.
Washington Redskins.
Got to be concerned at this point.
Are they concerned? Are they rookie year concerned about Dwayne Haskins?
Well, the Dwayne Haskins thing appears to have not been a consensus decision anyway, and some of the people that weren't in the consensus have now left the building. This is that's now a situation where whoever is coming in is not tied to him. Yeah. He hasn't shown anything yet.
But the owner is. The owner's not leaving.
True. He hasn't shown anything yet to say that he justifies that pick. I mean, at the very minimum, you have to be pretty concerned at what you're seeing from Dwayne Haskins. So yeah, there's no way that Washington can be happy at this point with what they've got.
The
Bears, obviously. Trubisky has been a disaster. They have benched him, albeit with an alleged hip pointer.
The Panthers are a new team.
The Panthers are a new team. So Cam Newton was struggling, was injured, has been shut down. There's a lot of talk that he is going to be moving on, whether it's trade, whether it's just releasing him. Kyle Allen was briefly thought to be the future. Now he's had some games where that appears to have been premature. Will Grier was, drafted in the sort of position where you look to be a backup / potential future starter. Looked like a disaster ever since he stopped playing for West Virginia.
Right.
So yeah, their situation is rough right now.
How about the Chargers?
Yes.
Are we overreacting? And again, we were just talking about this with Tom Brady. Everybody in the media, and sometimes we all fall victim to this, everyone just wants to draw a line in the sand in quarterbacks' careers. That's it. You've completely lost it. It's over, right? People have been trying to do this for Brady off and on at times during his career. Are we too quick to now do that with Phillip Rivers because he's got 72 interceptions over the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, so
in prime time too. Monday night, everybody saw it.
That's a big thing. We can fold in this idea that one of the other questions somebody asked was, is it Tyrod time in, I keep wanting to say San Diego, but
for what?
Los Angeles. For Phillip Rivers. Is it time to sit Phillip Rivers down, put in Tyrod?
I don't know. They're 4-7. Why?
Why? Because he's playing bad.
Yeah, not that bad.
Why do you ever swap a quarterback? Anyway, the point is, my basic point would be no, it isn't. Phillip Rivers has had one of the worst quarterback situations around him with the Chargers for years, right?
Offensive line-wise, he's had good playmakers, but O-line's been bad.
And it's been really bad and consistently really bad. There is a degree of pressure to which when you subject the quarterback to it, he just doesn't have a shot. And Phillip Rivers' that's been his baseline, is essentially operating behind that, right? So
people are distracted by your shirt.
By my shirt?
Yeah, dark green with the dark background.
Yeah, I got to stop.
I say, look at my shirt. Throw the damn ball. Shop.pff.com.
One day I'm gonna show up with a legitimate blank thing and just hide down here,
blend right in.
Just see my head.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. So when you subject the guy to that kind of pass protection for a decade, sometimes it's gonna look bad. The fact that he's been able to play as well as he has in the face of that pressure for so long is insane. But again, kind of all these quarterbacks, whether it's Eli, Ben Roethlisberger, Rivers, Brady, when you start reaching this age, you become more dependent on the people around you, right? And so it may not even be that anything has changed in terms of the people around you. It's just that you now rely on them more than you did in the past. So Rivers, for years, has been able to play some pretty spectacular stuff despite having really crappy pass blocking. Now he might not be able to get that done anymore. And we're seeing what happens, or what should happen most of the time, when a quarterback is dealing with that kind of pressure. Even though he has good playmakers, when you have that kind of pass blocking and you're old as hell, you don't play as well.
Yeah, and then, call me crazy, but
crazy.
I don't think that, the last 8 games that you saw are the only thing you need to focus on, right? We're also 1 year removed from Phillip Rivers in 2018, 88.9 overall grade, the best grade that he had posted since 2013, actually since before that, since 2010. Now, in the broader scheme of things, you could say he'd actually settled into just, good for 4 or 5 years, and then was last year just an anomaly, and now he's fallen back into where he was before. That's one way of looking at it. But I think everybody, just because he's got 14 interceptions, does he have 14 interceptions because he just, started throwing more YOLO balls, made a decision, or his arm's completely shot? I think everybody pictures Peyton Manning throwing ducks at the end of his career and thinks that every quarterback's just going to go through this phase where their arm goes from normal NFL to Kellen Moore.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what happens. So I'm not ready to draw the line in the sand. Phillip Rivers is done. I mean, he's still averaging 7.6 yards per attempt. He's still got a 73 grade, which is reasonable. But I do think He's a free agent. The Chargers are in the quarterback market.
And throughout his career, he's always been prone to iffy games. Bad games.
This is like preparing for your own retirement, right? They tell you to save every single year, so you're prepared for retirement.
How are you doing with that? I'm not doing great.
Oh no, terrible.
Yeah,
terrible. Anyway, I'm like the Chargers, Steelers, and Giants here.
Just desperately hoping that the 04 QB takes one more go around.
I'm just hoping that the whatever. We've been on the podcast for a few years. I've been mock drafting quarterbacks to the Steelers for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Chargers. Like, hey, if the guy shows up in the first round that you should draft, take him. Chargers, Giants, Steelers, the 04 quarterback class. Now they waited for Ben and Eli and Rivers to break down before they do anything.
So the Steelers have to be the next team up, right?
Oh, yeah,
they can't be happy with their situation. You've got Ben Roethlisberger, who got hurt by his arm just randomly snapping in half mid-throw. He's old as hell as well. He's looking pretty rough on the sideline. I saw someone, you do those meme pictures where it's like left and right. This looks like this. And it was Roethlisberger on the sideline with his, bulky sweatshirt, the hat, the beard. And on the right, it was Ron Burgundy after he lost his job. Beard, disheveled mess.
That's good.
So you got Roethlisberger, has been honestly playing like crap for a while, even before he hurt himself. Plus, he's old. You can't really have any legitimate confidence that 2020 version of Roethlisberger coming back is still a top quarterback. You've got Mason Rudolph, who's been playing pretty terribly since he's got the gig. You've got Duck, who probably isn't the answer.
Probably not.
Right, the Steelers have got to be looking to the future at this point, I would think.
All right, can I... We've made this comparison before.
Oh, no.
Do the Buffalo Bills...
Oh, you had to do it.
...have to look at their quarterback situation with Josh Allen, who, by the way, he has 13 passing touchdowns. That's whatever. 7 rushing touchdowns. I know he's one of those guys that kind of adds a little extra value that doesn't show up in the passing numbers and all that stuff. It's like the new age of the NFL where you can sneak a little extra rushing production in there and make things. It's a little bit better than it seems.
Right, but so in your world, yes, the Bills are desperately searching for a new quarterback. In the world of when the starting point was the team thinks they're okay, the Buffalo still thinks they're fine.
Okay, well, I'm just going to make this comparison because I'm going to go back and say, okay, we've made this before. 2017 Jaguars made it to the AFC Championship with Blake Bortles. Bortles had a 70 grade.
That was the one year where he actually looked viable, and then he just completely fell off a cliff.
So Bortles' career grades, 69.4. Including the playoffs in 17,
and he had some good games that year.
Yeah, and he had a little bit of a resurgence in year 2. Now he was a year 2 quarterback who threw 35 touchdowns. Blake Bortles threw 35 touchdowns.
Yeah,
just to throw out a number that people can wrap their head around. Now that was garbage time central in 2015. Allen Robinson went nuts, but Bortles. When you're sitting there hey, it's year 2, this guy's making strides. Right. We think every quarterback goes like this, Sam. So when you
can actually do it here because there's no listeners. It's all.
Oh, it's great.
All visual.
We think that every quarterback starts as a rookie like this and goes like this. So when Bortles does this, and it's year 2, big stride. Well, he actually went like this.
Yeah.
So Bortles made great year 2 strides. Jags were probably Jags fans were excited.
Yeah, there was a period where Blake Bortles looked like he was coming around and would be a good player, and then it all nosedived again.
This was 15, 16, and this was 17. This was the AFC Championship game. Now the Bills, if you just look at some production and all that stuff, Josh Allen's made some strides.
Yeah, since
last year. Has he made enough? Now so they made the AFC Championship with Bortles with a 70 grade in 2017. What was Trubisky's grade last year?
65, I think.
I got 63 during the regular season.
Yeah, there you go. Ish.
And, 63.6.
All right, don't get fixated on the Josh Allen thing because we have a few more teams that I want to
No, I want to finish my thought.
Can't finish your thought.
But you need to know where Allen is this year.
But whatever, there's almost nothing he can do for the next 6 games that makes the Bills go, no, we need a new QB.
He's a 60.6 grade.
Yeah.
As the Bills sit here with a 7-3 record.
Yes, but they think they're fine.
Jaguars AFC Championship. Bears had a bye. No, sorry, they won the division and hosted a wild card game with below average quarterback play, and the Bills are doing it this year. If they're honest about themselves, they're in the market.
Yeah, but you're making a mess of the premise of the question, which is which teams are unhappy with their quarterback
I think
situation.
this was a great point.
They're not unhappy with their quarterback situation. The Jets. Are the Jets losing faith in Sam Darnold and thinking to the future?
I mean, if you're going to bring up Sam Darnold, there's not that much of a difference between him and Josh Allen.
There's not a difference in terms of grade, but there is a difference in terms of perception within the building, I believe. I think that the Jets are far closer to losing faith in Darnold than the Bills are with Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, Darnold's lows are pretty low.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Two more teams, obviously Tennessee and Tampa Bay. Of neither of those teams, they were both on the iffy scale coming into the season of let's hope the guy finally gets it.
Yeah.
Neither of them got it. So
yeah, I think Mariota, we have no idea what's going to happen with Tannehill after the first 3 or 4 games that he plays, where he's played well. But they're going to be going on this Tannehill path, maybe, right?
God.
As like an Uber backup / 28th starter in the NFL, right? Winston and Mariota, where you're just going to hope that a new situation changes things. Mm-hmm. You have to hope that somebody gets that top year out of Winston.
Denver, got to be unhappy at this point. The Flacco thing is ugly. We haven't seen Drew Lock yet, except preseason, right? And that didn't look that well. So I guess Denver, at the very least, has to be twitchy. I think Cleveland still has faith in Baker. I think the Rams still have faith in Goff, though that's starting to look uglier.
They just invested so much.
The Colts. Are the Colts happy with the Jacoby Brissett spot?
I think it's another one. If you're honest with yourselves, you are looking to upgrade. But sometimes, this week's a big one. If they go to 7-4 and beat, sweep the Texans, and they've got this path to the AFC South Championship again, they could fool themselves, I think. I mean, Jacoby's been reasonable, but again, I think you have to be honest.
Well, that's an interesting one as well, because the stats are so good. Like 15 touchdowns, 4 picks.
Oh, yeah.
And yet I think that building is smart enough to understand what's actually creating that Frank Reich's offense is really good.
Yeah. Frank Reich,
the system around them is good.
A lot going for
I actually think that they are closer to being in the market than the Bills are, even though like statistically and grading wise, it might not be the case.
They also more stumbled into Brissett as their starter.
Sure.
Right. They made a nice trade. I mean,
but if you looked at it in isolation, it was like you get a guy, your starter walks away. The guy you left with is whatever I just said, 14 touchdowns, 3 picks.
Oh, they made a nice trade for him a couple preseasons ago to bring in. I have always looked at Brissett as I think he's one of the best backups in the NFL. And I think it's going to be tough for him to sustain the statistical output. Any other teams?
I think that's it, right? Can you come up with any more?
I'm just glancing around here quickly. No. I think that's it.
I think anything else would be a stretch. Well, I guess depending on...
The Jaguars are in an interesting spot because they're more of like an unknown.
Yeah.
I don't think they're unhappy, but they have to figure out the Foles Minshew.
Yeah, and depending on whether or not Brady's declining. Patriots are obviously...
Yeah, I mean,
in the market.
Patriots. Well, there's a difference between in the market and unhappy.
Ish.
Patriots should be unhappy with their team-building effort at tight end.
Tight end.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you have a 42-year-old quarterback, better make things good for him. I think that's it.
All right. So that was a good question. I like that one.
That was a good question.
Somebody else asked why or who on the Patriots offensive line has declined this year and why has it happened? So Shaq Mason is the obvious one, who's not having nearly as good a season as he did a year ago.
Grade is way down.
Yes.
Yeah. They've had Marshall Newhouse at left tackle,
right.
and he has a history
Didn't
of
decline
never
as
being
much
good.
as the position declined when
right.
had Marshall Newhouse thrown in there.
Newhouse has not been good. Where's Mason's grade now this year? 73, lower than he's been in recent years.
I think he had a good game this past week, which jumped him back up. I think before that that's pretty rough.
Their grades,
back good games.
Before
that it was ugly.
The Patriots offense, which has a reputation as being a short passing game, which it really hasn't been over the last few years. This year it is. I mean, it is a crazy amount of screens and short passes and all that stuff. So that's actually protecting the pressure numbers on these guys a lot. It's more in the must-pass situations. These guys are not doing well across the board.
Yeah, and there's been some change up in the line as well because of injuries. Now we've got
Ted Karras at center,
right?
Instead of David Andrews.
Yeah, he's not catastrophic, but that's a downgrade as well. So at that point, you're downgrading at least 3 of the starting 5 positions. 1 because the guy's playing worse, or was until 2 weeks ago. 2 and 3 because of injuries. One of which may come back at some point.
Isaiah Wynn is now activated and most likely expected to take over at left tackle
as soon as humanly
possible for Marshall Newhouse. So
that's that. With a couple of injuries, 1 just guy playing not as well, and consequently the line has been playing worse. Plus the offense generally is not protecting the offensive line the way it did in the past, because the whole offense is struggling, right? The receivers aren't great. Brady is not playing particularly well because the receivers aren't great, and the offensive line is worse. All those things lumped together, and the offensive line is being stressed more than it was in the past. So everything looks worse. It's kind of like, it's like a mini version of what's happening in Cleveland. In terms of everything compounding on itself to make it look worse than it should be.
Right.
The sum of the bad is, or the totality is worse than the sum of its parts.
Do you think Patrick Mahomes is no longer elite? Is he declining? You should pose that question.
I don't think I should.
That's what everybody wants to know.
Do they?
He's not a 90-plus quarterback anymore.
I don't want to know that. Oh, I don't want to answer that. I don't want any part of it. None. No part. Nothing.
What else we got?
That's pretty much it. It's been a light week on the mailbag. We need to get people mailbag questions, people. Podcasts, plural, at pff.com. Get into mailbag questions. Otherwise, it's going to be a short show.
Phillip Rivers to the Rams. Why would you do that to poor Phillip? From one terrible O-line to another.
That would be harsh.
The Rams, it is. We've mentioned this multiple times now. The Rams really are, the O-line, one of the stories of the season, going from extremely well protected in that system, and they weren't great in must-pass situations, but they were reasonable, and now it's just bad. So
let me hit you with one question that did come in through email that I don't want to spend too much time on because we covered it fairly extensively recently. From Kevin Kim. Lamar Jackson has the highest passing grade among quarterbacks if you exclude Week 3 against the Chiefs. He's really developed to become a more accurate, or has he really developed to become a more accurate passer, or is his improvement, I can't read today, based on the offensive scheme and more experience? In a few years' time, whether it's Lamar not being able to rely on his legs as much, Greg Roman leaving the Ravens, etc., can we expect him to stay as a top-tier quarterback, or is his value highly dependent on his legs and situation? Should Ravens fans expect him to make a fall like an immobile Cam Newton, or has his accuracy and decision-making improved enough to be successful in a different system that is less tailored to him?
Great question. I think there's many angles here. Let's start with this.
Oh God.
With this line.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Lamar was down here when it came to accuracy last year, and he's made this stride. He's made that step forward with regard to accuracy. And the thing I do like is, as much as the scheme is helping and there's more open throws and all that stuff, when they go empty, when they go quick game, like his short area accuracy is so much better.
Yeah.
And he's missing, and with accuracy there's different ways to slice it, right? It could be this binary, did you hit the throw or did you not? Did you make it catchable or did you not make it catchable? Or there's, did you make it catchable but not in the right position? It should have been here and you left it here. So how many perfect throws do you have versus ones that are catchable but, suboptimal? He's improved in both of those areas, okay? So that's great. Can we expect continued improvement? Can we expect him to level off? I think the thing in favor of him is the fact that he's still extremely young at the quarterback position. I wrote this in my pre-draft article about Lamar Jackson. In high school, he just ran around and ran plays. Mm-hmm. At Louisville, he did get better every single year as a passer. And the other thing we said for years, if you just take his high-end sample of plays, goes through progressions, throws the ball accurately, makes an NFL throw, like you could find a 50 to 100 play sample where it's like, here are NFL things. The problem before was that the other 80% of the plays were inaccurate, just weren't great. So you could always convince yourself that it was in there. So I could see the improvement given some of the inexperience and the fact that he has shown pretty much continuous improvement. but I would also give a little buyer beware that all of a sudden a switch was flipped and now, okay, he's good.
Yeah.
He's accurate.
So that's the thing, right? I think the first question to be answered is, has he changed, or is he just going on a run of better accuracy, right? The sample sizes being what they are in football, we're not going to know that for a while. So if his level stays where it is right now, I think you could probably turn him into a viable, let's just call it traditional pocket passer. Like if you removed all of the rushing aspects of this game, if you plugged him into the Rams offense right now with Baltimore's system, with Baltimore's personnel, I think he would look fine. I think he'd look good. Because he's passing at that kind of level that he's able to get that done right now, regardless of the rushing threat. But that is contingent on that either staying where it is or continuing to improve. If we don't know that that's the case, because we've seen it with Bortles, right? We've seen it with a bunch of quarterbacks. It's not always that stable just because something has improved, and logically it fits the narrative of young player getting progressively better. Doesn't always mean that that's what's going to happen going forward.
He was, just for perspective, he was like 38th out of 39 last year. He was second to last in adjusting completion percentage. He's up to 14th.
Yeah, I mean, his accuracy is night and day different. If you have the quarterback annual, you go back into the PFF archives, if you're an Elite or Edge subscriber, and you download the QB annual, and you pull out the sort of infographics at the start where we basically visually represent where all the quarterbacks are in accuracy. Like every single one of them, there's a table, and then there's Lamar down here on his own. Like he was last season spectacularly inaccurate across the board, pretty much any way you wanted to slice the numbers. And he hasn't become Drew Brees or anything, but he's gone from being off on his own on the bottom to being in the middle somewhere. Yep. Again, basically any way you slice the numbers. So this season, he has been dramatically more accurate than a season ago.
About 6 or 7% more accurate than we saw last year or in college, which were both at a similar baseline.
And even, adjusted completion percentage is up nearly 10 points. Yeah. No matter which way you slice the numbers, he has become dramatically more accurate this year. It's just that we don't know that will continue. I would say with accuracy, it has a greater chance to do so than just like a random spike in play, but we don't know, right? So I guess assuming the premise that he stays at this level or gets even better, I think, he's reaching the point where as a passer, he is viable, or not viable, he's good enough that it doesn't matter what system he's in. If that goes back a little bit, even, regresses towards where it was last year or goes all the way back, then he needs this kind of system to prop him up and to create bigger windows to pass.
So like everything, it's a little bit of everything, right? So just like we're not going to completely throw the towel in for Phillip Rivers, and you have to understand everything that's going on around him. Same thing with Brady. With Lamar, he's taken steps forward. Now the system has obviously taken steps forward. Now, how much of the system, so to speak, is Lamar Jackson's skill set allowing for that? A ton, right? That's great. His ability to run and the way they're using him and his spectacular rushing ability paired with the improvements he's made as a passer, paired with the way the Ravens have built their team, go forward on fourth down, have attacked the tight end position and made those guys weapons, have added deep speed in Marquise Brown. They had a very specific plan, which is Lamar's going to run the ball a little bit. We're going to have tight ends to work the play action game, or we're going to have a speedster to stretch the field, or multiple speedsters to stretch the field in the play action game. And they've built things the right way. So everything's gotten better in Baltimore, and Lamar has certainly been the catalyst.
I think there was also the connection that he and Marquise Brown had like week 1 and 2, I think is actually really important, because that connection has died off, but the threat is still there. When you've got a guy that runs that fast, and when you proved immediately that, hey, if you switch off on this, it's an 80-yard touchdown the second you're not paying attention. Like now, through the rest of the year, it doesn't even matter if you hit on one of those again, because everybody knows that threat exists and has to respect it. If you started off the season and you hadn't basically proven to people that that's a dangerous thing yet, you would get teams not necessarily respecting it. But right out of the gate, they showed teams that, hey, if you don't respect this connection, you're going to have some problems. So now every single team they play has to respect the speed that Marquise Brown has and back off to a degree.
And even if it doesn't show up every week, we're 2 weeks removed from him against the Bengals. They put Marquise Brown first play, deep post, gets behind the defense. Later on, they put him in the slot. We're seeing a lot of that in the NFL. A speed receiver in the slot, just getting behind the defense for a touchdown. So, a lot of things going right for the Ravens. And definitely give a ton of credit to Lamar.
Yeah, that's it. That's our mailbag.
That's it. Thanks for showing up. Glad your computer made it.
Just about. It's something quite ironic about the fact that your laptop is going to outlive mine.
I can relate. Yeah, relatable. All right, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow for our Week 12 preview, both in real podcast world and right here on the YouTube channel. We're out, Ken.